Hello and welcome to this episode of the Diverge podcast, brought to you by Squirt Cycling Products. In this episode, we dive into stage 2 of the 2026 Absa Cape Epic, which was won by the Thömus Maxon Sabi Sabi and Canyon teams, Candice and Alessandra Keller, adding more time to their steadily growing general classification advantage, while Luca, Schwarzbauer and Sam Gaze stormed to a stage victory in another sprint finish in the men's race. The other little thing to watch there that we will dive into a little bit more, Toyota Specialized in Buco ceding another 2 seconds in the sprint to Wilier-Vittoria. So that affects their general classification standings, and it's getting pretty tight. It's getting to the point that the jersey might change hands if we see another sprint tomorrow, which I think we will do. Stage 2 in the women's race, 80 kilometers, start at Stemmet Kwekerij Nursery for the non-Afrikaans speakers, and basically straight into a climb once again. Courtney did almost all of the pace setting today for the She Sends Foundation team. Looking after Greta Seiwald. Greta sending it on the descents, but on the flats and on the climbs, Courtney doing most of the work. And at some point between the top, but somewhere on Oberg Pass, we think. We're not entirely sure because the cameras missed it, but Rosa van Doorn punctured. The problem for Rosa van Doorn and the Buff BH Efficient Infinity team was that Wout Alleman and Martin Stosek had also punctured already and had used the spare wheel. So there were issues, big issues for Van Doorn and Laza, who ended up losing 23 minutes on the stage, 9 flat tires, repeatedly having to stop to fix it. Got to limped into an aid station, rode in 7 kilometers on the tire liner, got to an aid station, only had a flat wheel in the Buff BH, a wheel bag, because there were 2 spares at the water point where the woman had started, and only one at the next tech zone after they had punctured. So, they contemplated changing the cassette off that spare and putting it onto Vera Laza's spare wheel, because Laza runs SRAM and Van Doorn and her Buff BH squad are on Shimano, so the cassettes are incompatible with the derailleurs on their bikes. And eventually they just kind of pushed on, took a bunch of bombs with them, punctured repeatedly. When at long last they got the wheel fixed, they about 2 kilometers after rolling out of that tech zone had a front wheel puncture. So it was really just one of those days where everything just went wrong for the Buff BH Efficient Infinity team. Ended up losing 23 minutes on the day. Up front, Thömus Maxon Sabi Sabi and She Sends were duking it out. Candice and Alessandra Keller seemed to be playing a patience game, racing very smart, letting Courtney set the pace for much of the day, and then about 9 kilometers from the line, they accelerated away on a little draggy climb, got a lead, went into the single track first and really put the hammer down in the single track, the final 3 kilometer single track section, and managed to eke out a 38-second lead over Courtney and Greta Seiwald. Behind them, Tuparo FSA Kenda's Katarina Sosna and Giorgio Marquette were racing with Kim Champ Honeycombs, Hayley Preen and Hayley Smith, and the Sani to see Efficient Infinity team of Samantha Sanders and Bianca Hall for much of the day. They ended up in a 2-team sprint for third place, between Tapara Kenda and Kempchamp Honeycomb. Sosna and Moshette took that victory ahead of the Haleys, Preen and Smith, and Sanders and Bianca Hall had to settle 5th place on the day, but their best day of the race, adding more time to their Absa African Jersey lead. So after 3 stages, going into the longest day of the race, Lill and Keller lead Courtney and Seiwald by 3 minutes and 31 seconds. The Simtech.net team of Margot Moschetti and Claudia Peretti also had a tough day. Claudia Peretti had a big fall quite early on in the day, rode with a grazed hip, which looks like it's going to be pretty stiff and sore tomorrow. They ended up finishing in 6th place on the day, but they lost time as well. They're now 25 minutes down, 25 minutes and 4 seconds down in 3rd place. Kempchamp Honeycombs, Hayley Preen and Hayley Smith on 4th. They are 26 minutes and 1 second down, so they've moved up 1 place. And then the Buff BH Efficient Infinity team of Rosa van Doorn and Vera Laza, they are in 5th, 26 minutes and 54 seconds down. Not too far off 3rd place, but yeah, a long way from the race lead, unfortunately. And they had started the day at 3 minutes back. So yeah, big time loss. And you really have to feel for both Rosa and Vera after that. The men's race, as I alluded to earlier, Wout Alleman and Martin Stosek had punctures as well. That they were sort of the big name out of that front group that punctured out. They had relied on help from Hans Becking earlier in the stage, managed to get back, then punctured again. And that left pretty strong selection up at the front. The Canyon team were there, Luca Schwarzbauer doing better in the cooler temperatures than he had done on the previous 2 days, also avoiding punctures on mechanicals, which had cost him 6 minutes on stage 1. Sam Gaze looked very comfortable all throughout the day. He was helping set the tempo at the front. Wilier-Vittoria were there, as were the Origin Wilier team of Matteo Cesaro and Yuri Zanotti. Tapara Kenda FSA's Fabian Robinsteiner and Casey South were in the mix. The yellow jerseys, Toyota Specialized in Bucos, Matt Beers and Tristan Nortje were there the entire day. And Beers actually did a lot of the pacemaking after the Oberg climb. He just went to the front, and as you'll hear Tristan Nortje say, it was just safer to be on the front, and so that is what they did. Didn't set a particularly fierce pace, allowed teams to come back. Robinstein and South punctured and came back to that group. Toyota Specialized in Buco 2's Marco Joubert and Travis Stedman made it back to that group a couple of times, but were always sort of yo-yoing. And the Insect Science team of Vessel Buerta and Johan van Zyl were there and thereabouts as well for much of the day. Eventually, when it came into the finale with about 10 kilometers to go, the pace really picked up with the cross-country teams driving it on. Canyon, Wilier-Vittoria and Oregon Wilier were responsible for much of that. And it looked like Nortje might get distanced, but every time he was able to close back up. The cross-country guys really putting in big accelerations, but they unable to hold those for long enough to completely snap the elastic to Nortje. He was just riding at a very strong tempo, and then when they had to sit up, he would always manage to come back. So one to look out for there, perhaps in the coming days. But yeah, Tristan Nortje very, very strong. Definitely not for cracking at this point. What has happened, though, is that Matt Beers was trying to control as they approached the final single track about 3 kilometers from the finish, but both Canyon and Wilier-Vittoria managed to slip by him in that, and then they had the best run into the finish. Sam Gaze crossed the line first. Lucas Schwarzbauer was next to cross the line. Then Luca Braidot and Simone Avondetto were 2 seconds down on the stage winners, and Beers and Tristan lost 4 seconds to Canyon, but more importantly, 2 seconds to Braidot and Avondetto. That sets us up for a potential sprint finish again tomorrow, and the potential for the jersey to change hands without time really having been lost. But also, to be fair, there hasn't been much between the Wilier-Vittoria and Toyota Specialized and Buco teams thus far in the race, because the 6 seconds that separated them after the prologue was pretty much because of Wout Alleman and Martin Stosek being a bit slow in the single track. I think Stosek there held up the Italian team in the last single track. So that cost them probably, maybe 10 seconds, maybe a little bit less than 10 seconds. So, nothing in it between those teams. Now just 2 seconds on the overall general classification. And you feel that might get smaller tomorrow if we have another sprint finish and the terrain doesn't look like there's going to be much opportunity for Beers and Nortje to launch and attack unless they go from a very, very long way out. Clementise Obeas, David Valero Sonoro, and Mark Stutzman are third on the general classification. They were 6th on today's stage, 29 seconds down on the overall standing, so very, very close. And Oregon, Wilier, Azaro, and Zanotti are 34 seconds down. So from first to fourth, 34 seconds, and then to Parakenda, FSAs, Robinstein and South at 1:45. In the Absa African Jersey competition for the men, Insect Science gained time today. Not on the leaders, of course, but they moved up in the general classification. They're 8th overall now, 6 minutes and 42 seconds behind Matt Beers and Tristan Nortje, but Vesselboerter and Johan van Stel looking good at this point in the race, and looking good in the red jerseys they have on loan from Toyota Specialized in Buco. Mark Hubert and Travis Stedman also gained a couple of places today. They're 14th overall and 3rd in the Absa African Jersey competition. Let's hear from Tristan Nortje quickly before we jump into tomorrow's stage and what we're expecting on the longest day since 2012.
Yeah, I think today was a weird day. It was quite boring. There wasn't any decisive points. It was quite rough and rocky after over. So Matt just rode at the front. Me and Matt just rode at the front for quite a long time. But we did it just to keep safe, because it was quite chaos at the back and just rocks flying. And so we just controlled the pace and tried to stay safe. And we managed that well. And then these XCO boys did big kicks here, like 5Ks to go. So I thought I wouldn't be able to follow them, but me and Matt followed them. It's not easy, but I was surprised we could follow them. Of course, in the final 30 meters, I can't match that power, but I think we're still in yellow and the podium again, so happy with today.
As I said, longest stage since 2012. Tomorrow, 140 kilometers from Montagu to Middle Pass on the western side of Greta. Lots of tar road, lots of district road. It's going to be smooth and fast, but there is a very rocky middle section around the Toyota Tough segment of the day's stage. And that's sort of from about 40 kilometers to 60 kilometers. That's going to be it's too far away to be decisive. So I think it's just going to be an interesting segment where people might potentially puncture, could lead to some drama. Then they drop down the tar road through the Stormsrivier Pass and hang a right on towards Rivier End, and from there they'll have a tailwind pushing them all the way home to Middle Pass. But still, that's 60 kilometers, still 80 kilometers from there, and lots more gravel road until the final 20 kilometers, which is a pretty rocky dual track and some trails. I don't think that dual track and trails is going to be enough to break up the race if we have a group going in there. But if somebody manages to get away, that might be the opportunity where they can stay away after the gravel road, where team dynamics, strength and depth could help both Toyota Specialized and Buco and the Wilier-Vittoria team who have support. Kilometres also have support teams, of course. Actually, there's a lot of strength and depth in this year's field with multiple support teams across the board. So maybe tomorrow is the stage. Maybe stage 3 is the day where those teams come to the fore and really help out. We will see. The road will determine, and we will bring you a recap of that tomorrow, as well as some interviews on diverge.info on Instagram. Stay tuned. Until next time. Cheers.